WNST. A little more fake football, just what you needed. More Ryan Mallett. We all need that. But certainly down in South Florida, they definitely need some Jay Cutler after the injury to Ryan Tannehill. This guy chronicles all things sports as well as news and views down in South Florida in Miami, where I laid on the beach a little bit, had some fun down there last month as part of the All-Star Game festivities. I felt like there were more tourists than there were locals there. Adam Cooperstein joins us now. Adam NBC6 is the way to follow him out on Twitter. A dozen years now down there. And, you know, the one thing you got going, even if the football team stinks this year, Adam, you got sunshine down there. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Did you get fried a little bit on the beach? Because, you know, you came in the depths of the summer down to Miami. That's not like, you know who's on the beach. It's not locals at that time. That's all Northeasterners and tourists.
It was too hot for the tourist. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that's going to, like, lay out in Hollywood or whatever, although I did drive through there, even South Beach. I try to find some place just south of Fort Lauderdale, north of North Miami Beach, places like that nobody knows about, that nobody can find, and I just, like, plop down. And, yes, I baked. It was, I felt a little lobster-esque when I was down there. But you know what? They put the new bra on the stadium there, right? Like, you mentioned sunburns and stuff. I've never gone down there with a group of Ravens fans, and I take groups all the time. We're going to London next month, and everyone winds up getting baked when they go there because there was really nowhere to run or hide in that stadium. Now they've kind of Europeanified it. I feel bad that, never feel bad that I'm missing fake football, but it seems like a nice place to sit and watch a football game now.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful stadium, and that little canopy certainly is going to help you if you've got some good seats. But there are a whole bunch of seats that are out in the open, the non-club seats, the non-suite seats. Those people are still going to fry. And you're going to bake out there. I mean, it's not completely covered. And, in fact, I was just out there for El Clásico, you know, Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Nice work.
And thank you. And during that game, the circulation was non-existent. And so that was the first real game with a big crowd during the, with this new configuration. With
also in the summer, too. You know, I think playing in the afternoon in July and August there is probably different than October, November, right?
Yeah, but it's not different than September. September is actually our worst month here. And so I'm telling you, September home football games at that stadium now with no airflow, at least in the past when it was hot and humid, you'd have some wind, some breeze. Now it's actually even hotter, and I think it could be an advantage, a much-needed one for the Dolphins.
All right, well, the team was looking okay in the offseason. I certainly have looked at the roster, and look, man, with our problems here, I could sit here and cry you a river for 20 minutes about we don't even know if our quarterback's upright at this point. We're a mess. O-line's a mess. But for the Dolphins, it really feels like they've solidified lots of different parts. There's lots of high draft picks. There's some guys there that are accomplished or on the road to accomplish. Then this Tannehill thing happens, and in comes Jay Cutler. And I dare I say, and I know I tweeted at the time, Adam, if Jay Cutler's your solution, man, you got a hell of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens anytime you lose a quarterback right before the season starts. I don't really care what team you are. Who's got a backup that they really feel that good about? And the Dolphins have a very average backup in Matt Moore, and so they wanted a guy who at least gives them more upside. And that's only because of Cutler's big arm and then his familiarity with Adam Gase, the head coach who's with the Dolphins now and used to be with him in Chicago with the Bears, his offensive coordinator. So, yeah, I'm with you. Like, most likely Jay Cutler's not going to be able to lead the Dolphins back to the playoffs. They're probably not going to think of him as an upgrade to Ryan Tannehill, but he is a little bit of a wild card only because when he was at his best, whether it was Denver or that year with Adam Gase in Chicago, he was an average NFL quarterback. I mean, that's when he's bad, he's really bad, but he had his moments, and I think the Dolphins are just kind of betting on here, saying, all right, it's worth a shot because if it doesn't work out, we can always go with old 8-8 Matt Moore.
Well, look, there's $10 million at stake, right? And we all saw his Instagram and half-naked body on the beach and his wife, and he got this contract to do television when he was never even a good interview and certainly, the most dour press conferences in the league. He's the Bill Belichick version of a quarterback as far as press conferences. Apparently, he was going to be an incredible analyst. I know he's a smart guy, and, I've gone on and on for years. My wife is diabetic, so, I understand the challenges, mood swings, lethargy that goes along with that, and I have an incredible respect for him. The one thing I'll say, very few of us get to leave our profession and say we did something or we didn't do something and then get invited back in after sleeping on it, praying praying on it, beaching on it, sitting on it, especially when you got $100 million in the bank, to say his legacy, when you looked him up, you know, like a baseball reference, they compare you to another player. His comparisons, his comps from everyone I talked to was Jeff George. Boy, that's not where you want your graveyard of NFL legacy to be. Yeah, he was the Jeff George of his era, you know, and he has a chance to come back here and maybe repaint that, reposition that, as well as collect $10 million. But he's got to bootstrap this thing up down there, and I would say this looking at it. I know he had a decent team in Chicago that went to the championship game, had a couple of decent teams when he was young in Denver, but, you know, this could be the best team he's been on around him. Now, I don't know what version you're going to get of him, and maybe he was inspired by watching the Kurt Warner story or seeing the Carson Palmer rewrite that's going on. He has a chance to go do that right now. Not a lot of us get that opportunity. We're going to see where the fire in the belly is for him in his mid-30s, right?
Yeah, and I can't gauge that just by watching him at a practice here, so we don't know that part. But I know that the team around them is okay. I don't think his weapons are any better than he had in Chicago. Let's remember, it was Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. He was playing with some good. Actually, no, it wasn't even Brandon Marshall. Well, he had Marshall for a little while, of course. He did have him in Denver and then in Chicago. But he had Matt Forte. He had good weapons in Chicago the year he had success. In Miami, Jay Ajayi is a good running back. Jarvis Landry is a very good wide receiver. They have high hopes for a younger guy, Devontae Parker, now in his third year. But it's not like the Dolphins are, running around with a bunch of all-pros in the skill positions. And more importantly, is he going to stay upright? Their offensive line, they have some good players, but no depth. So if you lose a Mike Pouncey, which every year he goes down with an injury, or your left tackle, Laramie Tunsil, who you might know as the marijuana gas mask kid.
Well, I mean, he would have fallen. We passed on him, Right. And when you talk about these kids like Parker gets compared to Perryman because they were 14 picks apart, and neither one have sort of become that rose yet while we're watching Odell Beckham make, crazy catches. But, Tunsil's going to get compared to Stanley, and Stanley hasn't practiced this week. So, the O-line problem, doesn't matter who your quarterback is. Aaron Rodgers, if he's not upright, I don't think there's any doubt. But they have expended a lot of energy on that O-line, though.
Oh yeah, they spent draft picks, they spent money. I think that is a concern because they don't have depth, and so just watch for that. If one guy goes down, then all of a sudden the Dolphins are going to be in trouble, and most importantly, Jay Cutler is going to be in trouble.
He is Adam Cooperstein. He covers all things sports and news in Miami at NBC6. You can follow him out on Twitter at AdamNBC and the number 6, as well as at NBC6 out on the web. For Gase to have to go this route, right? We were in the middle of the whole Colin Kaepernick thing a week and a half ago. I think after Charlottesville and what's going on in Seattle and what's going on and brewing around the league here and around our country, things might change on the Kaepernick thing pretty quickly. But, for Gase to stick his neck out, this is his job too, right? He doesn't want to be the guy that goes 2-14 that becomes the latter-day Cam Cameron or, fill in any coach south of Wannstedt and Shula who have not gotten them into January football. But, the disappointment of all of that would be having to go do it with Matt Moore. I don't know that they were ever considering Kaepernick. I mean, there were some rumors out there that they were looking at some guys clearly not even in Kaepernick's league. But I do wonder what the backup plan would have been had Cutler not decided to do this and how much arm twisting had to be done. But, boy, Gase has stuck his neck out, and Gase thinks this is his best chance, and not everybody liked Cutler. The fact that Gase was willing to reach to him and work with him, I think that speaks volumes about Cutler and Gase, and apparently Cutler's been on his best behavior since he's gotten there, right?
Sure, but it's a safe pick, because Gase is familiar with him. He went for the easy, safe decision. The one thing I love about Adam Gase is that a rarity among NFL coaches, he's one of the few guys, at least his rookie year, who would seem to be willing to take some chances and think outside the box, which is almost non-existent in that profession. And so I was kind of hoping that would also be true in this case, and Colin Kaepernick would have been an option that he considered. But I don't think he did. I think he went for, okay, I know Cutler, it's an important position. I know what I'm getting there. Kaepernick is a wild card, and on top of that, he could be a problem, if you will, for some of the fans, not just because of his protest and some of what he stands for, which has been polarizing among most Americans, but it's also the comments about Fidel Castro that are especially concerning for the South Florida community. Or, he wore a Che Guevara shirt. And so they're really going to be concerning for South Florida's Cuban community. And it's not really going to be that. That's not the headline if Colin Kaepernick goes and signs in Baltimore. It is if he signs with the Miami Dolphins.
It's interesting you'd say that because I was on the MLB junket back in 1999. I went to Havana for the game down there. I was in Fort Lauderdale. Matter of fact, I've just released a book called The Peter Principles about Angelos, which may lead me into Laurier here in a minute. There may be a transition coming here, Adam. But I went down to Cuba and I remember Palmeiro. I remember how irate John Henry was at that point. He owned the Marlins and said they had no business going down there. And 20 years later, Cuba's opened up at this point, but anything that's pro-Castro there it's a completely different world. And I don't know that was as brought up in the media with the Kaepernick thing, but Kaepernick was never really linked to the Dolphins. I mean, the Cutler thing kind of happened quickly, and I think things could work out there. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm skeptical about, including Joe Flacco's back right now because I haven't seen him stand upright. But, I don't think that's a bad team down there, and I certainly think they're a better team than the Jets or the Bills. And, everybody's just saying, well, the Patriots are going to be 19-0. I think the Dolphins are going to have something to say about that this year.
Well, I hope you're right. I don't know. I don't think they're definitely better than the Jets and the Bills. I'm with you there. I still think the Patriots are in a different league. And the Dolphins' defense just isn't good enough. They just lost their starting linebacker to an ACL tear, Raekwon McMillan, second-round pick. They just lost another defensive back, Tony Lippett, in a practice. So they're just the injury thing. You lose your quarterback and a couple starters, and your defense already was thin to begin with, and your offensive line is thin. I'm not expecting this team to be better than a year ago.
Wow. Adam Cooperstein joining us here from Miami. All right, so, this is part of the story and the stadium and some crappy fake football and Jay Cutler's little coming out party for the 32,000 that decide to show up this week, and that'll come and go, and hopefully no injuries on either side of the ball here. But, I was down there for the All-Star game last month, and I got to tell you, I did 30 ballparks in 30 days 2 years ago for the Bone Marrow Registry. I went to all the ballparks. I haven't been to Atlanta now because they changed that one out, but I really disliked the ballpark. I mean, literally everything. The only thing I liked about it was going down to Little Havana and, hanging out at Versailles and getting a little cappuccino and, having some delicious Cuban food. But, I don't get it, and I know Jeter's coming in there, and they're talking about getting rid of the pinwheel in the outfield and all that. Boy, I can't imagine a community that would be more happy, other than maybe Baltimore with Angelos, to be deodorized of ownership. But I don't know that the armpit smell of the Laurier regime just gets washed away. I mean, that franchise has challenges now that I think are built where the stadium is built, if you're talking about getting anybody north of where the football stadium is to come down there and see a baseball game.
Out here, location, I don't think that's it. I just don't. I think Miami is such an event town. If you put out a product that people think is cool and competitive and has a chance to win, they're going to come. They're going to come. And so, nobody up north complains about where the Heat Arena is downtown Miami, and it's certainly not convenient for people who live in Boca and Fort Lauderdale.
And by the way, it sucked for me last month getting the Roger Waters.
Yeah, it's up there in Sunrise. Right. So, it's spread out. You got to do some driving sometimes to get places. But if you want to go see the show, whether it's Roger Waters or the show is the Miami Heat when it was the Big Three era, or even now, people still want to go down there and support a team that's kind of young and up and coming, and they have some, good guys. And Pat Riley's still running the show. And so the Heat never struggle like that. And it's because of, good ownership, things you talked about that was non-existent with the Marlins, but also the sense that they're competing and trying to put out a good product. So to me, the Marlins thing is half the battle is new ownership. Cool, okay. Got rid of Loria, stench is going away, and Derek Jeter brings in instant credibility. Well, is he going to be able to field a team that people are excited about? And the challenge now for that is Giancarlo Stanton is the most exciting thing going for the Marlins. He's the best slugger right now in baseball, just killing it. 10 homers his last 11 games. He's got 43 already for the season. But truthfully, if they want to be doing what's best for the future of the ball club, they should probably trade Giancarlo Stanton. And is Jeter going to do that? Or is he going to keep him around even with that big contract just because hey, we want to make sure the fans are happy and have something to come to the ballpark for. So a lot of decisions for this new ownership group, and the team is not set up for instant success. Like it's going to be a few years, whether it's trading Giancarlo and getting prospects or just trying to rebuild around them.
I could hope here one day, and look, I'm sitting here in my Oriole jersey, my Wild Bill Hagee 34, out on YouTube, and, people can see that I wear my Oriole stuff. And, the last 25 years in writing a book about how horrific the ownership has been here, how the ownership has just left the community behind time after time, and, since the Ripken era, and they've won a little bit lately, and, they have all these question marks about the future with Machado and all that, but the people here almost can't, I guess it's be like living in Moscow and thinking about Putin, or living in Havana and thinking about Castro. You don't see the end of it, but at least in Miami, everybody knew at some point this guy was going to cash a check and just take the money and run. And that's pretty much what he did, and he's run off like the bandit, or will, or shall, but at least the team is getting left behind, and the stadium's getting left behind, and there will be an end to this. In Baltimore, we don't really, feel the end of it. It's like being a Redskin fan right now. They don't feel the end of this creep that owns the team. It feels like there's going to be 20 more years where it's just going to be insult after insult to the fan base. And I know the Marlins fan base never had sort of that intrinsic thing that a Redskins or an Oriole fan would have, or even an old Colt fan might have for the NFL, which is that deep feeling. The Marlins never really set that in. They've won 2 championships, which are 2 more than we've won since 1983 around here. It really is kind of a cautionary tale because, Adam, I remember when Miami as a baseball thing was only something that Michael J. Fox talked about in Back to the Future. It wasn't a real thing. It's been a real thing for, half my lifetime now, and I go down there and I think, man, did they just piss away the whole thing here? I mean, they got Cuban people here, Latin people here, my people, Venezuelan people. They got sunshine. They got baseball. They have all this heritage with baseball in that area, and then they have a blimp down there. Now, that's good for the weather and the storms, but I do wonder if anything could ever blossom from that because, look, they're still waiting for it over in Tampa, too, and they haven't stunk as a franchise either.
Yeah, it's a unique situation. I mean, really, there's never been a sports franchise quite like the Marlins, where they just won everything twice early in the infancy years of the franchise, and then had an ownership that just took a dump basically on everything, ruined it, and they haven't been even competitive since. It's been 14 years since they made the playoffs. They've had like 1 winning record in a decade. So it's a weird situation where they got some credibility early and then wasted it all away. So, the Marlins, it's just they're in a weird spot. They're definitely very different than the Orioles, obviously, and I lived in Baltimore for a little while. And at least you guys have a beautiful ballpark. I know you weren't a huge fan of what's happening in Miami, but and Angelos, it doesn't sound like a very good situation in Baltimore, but at least you got Camden Yards. That place is the best.
Well, you know what, dude? And this is an incredible thing. I mean, I've released 12 chapters. Chapter 12 came out this week, and Chapter 1, Jeffrey Loria is he's the co-pilot. I mean, he was the guy bidding against Angelos. He was the guy who would have owned this thing here and milked it like a cow. So I don't know that we were in any position that day in New York in the summer heat of 1993 to be a winner because it was Angelos or it was Loria. Those were the guys. And, I think it's fascinating to do this case study over 2 decades of what he what his legacy will be in Miami now that it's done. But, I think the legacy there is a team at least, and Jeter's going to take it over, and we'll see how it turns out. He'd still have everybody hard. Really, everybody's a Canes guy down there, right? I mean, Canes are the real franchise there, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, people love the Canes, but the big teams here, it's Heat and Dolphins, and they're about even. It used to be a football town, and it was Dolphins and Canes, but ever since Shaq, Dwayne Wade, Pat Riley came around, and then, of course, LeBron, this town has really taken over as a basketball town.
Were you at the stadium the night Machado went nuts and it was bonkers in there during the World Baseball Classic? I mean, that looked like a night that was a good ballpark, with some energy in there, right?
Yeah, it's at its best for the World Baseball Classic, at its best. And that's when people get, this town is made for World Baseball Classic. If we could get the World Cup to play a game in the area, that would be incredible. That's what South Florida is perfect for. And you're right, yeah, Machado, that was fun. Machado, local guy, good story, and people I love the energy. That's the way I think. If baseball was going to succeed in Miami, you'd kind of want to see a culture shift, and you've seen it sometimes, and it leads to fights, and it leads to people getting beamed at times in baseball with these culture wars, in essence, with pitchers and batters. But in Miami, the fans, it's hard to sit down and think like, oh, I have to be proper during a big one because it's a sport, because it's a tradition. What the hell? So the World Baseball Classic, all bets are off, and everybody's hooting and hollering, having fun. And it's just a much more Miami atmosphere.
Did you just bat flip on me, Adam Cooperstein? Did you just do that?
That's correct. Yep.
That's allowed in Miami, though, right? I mean, you're allowed to flip the bat there, right?
Not only allowed, it's encouraged. Yeah, we're pro fun.
Pro salsa, that's what I'm talking about. Adam, great having you on, man. Keep the faith. We'll watch some fake football down there on Thursday night. I appreciate you giving us a little look at the fish. Who I think are going to swim a little bit more this year. We'll see.
All right, hope you're right.
For all my friends who are Dolphins fans, I hope I'm right as well. I got a lot of long-suffering fans. Adam Cooperstein does things down at NBC6 in Miami. He's the sports anchor, and on the news side there, you can follow him, Adam NBC6, the number 6, out on Twitter as well. You can find me out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where you can get in some Miami shape right here in Baltimore. Learn more at PlanetOfTriumphs.com. Last but never least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford at Security Boulevard. Dennis Kolatzis will be here on Thursday. He'll drive you home, get you ready for said fake football. 3 more weeks of fake football, and then we're off to Cincinnati, and I know we'll all be holding our collective breath on number 5. I certainly hope Joe Flacco gets back out there. My fondness and affinity for number 5 is well documented around here. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. I hope Joe Flacco's on the field in Wembley as well a month from now. If you're going over to London, we're throwing a party. It is Saturday morning into the afternoon, 11 until 2:52. We are doing a sky purple takeover of the Thames River as a fan base with a 3-block march. It's going to be a good time on a Saturday afternoon on the Docklands of East London, Londinium, to the O2 Arena. So you can send me an email on that. I'll also be bragging up on that on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Appreciate all the kind words and the strength sent to my mom on behalf of me and my family. We appreciate it. I'm Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports